Hey guys, so in this video I'll be showing you the way that I load my palette knife and the way that I like to make my petals. So I'm just starting out here with a pinky red paint that I found a little bit too warm for what I was going for. So I've just added in a little bit of blue paint and I'm mixing them together just to make it a little bit more of a cool pink. Please ignore my nails, my hands are trash, they're always covered in paint and modeling paste and I just don't see the point in getting manicures anymore. So anyway, here I am just massaging the colours together to try and make it the colour that I'm going for. In this video it does look a bit more like a beige or something, but in real life it was more of a pink. So there are a few different ways that you can load your palette knife. Some artists like to do so by massaging the knife along the edges of the tubs that they've mixed their paint up in, and others like myself prefer to use a smooth flat surface. So I personally don't use tubs when I mix my modeling paste and paint. I just use a paint palette like this. Here I'm just pressing my modeling paste all together up into a bit of a pile because it just makes it a little bit easier to work with. So to load my palette knife, I basically just put my knife directly into the little pile that I have made there and pull backwards, scraping across my palette. I will do this a few times just to try and grab some at the back of my knife, and I'll massage it a little bit onto the palette until I feel like I have enough and that the paint is smooth enough for me to use. So the goal is to basically get your paste nice and rounded on your knife, and the smoother that the edges of the knife are, the more smooth the petal will appear on the canvas itself. So sometimes I will drag the palette knife down on both sides as well, just to make sure that all those edges are nice and smooth. Something that will really come in handy when you're doing these paintings is having a damp cloth or a packet of baby wipes nearby at all times. So you can use this in between different colours and also just in between your petals in general. If your knife starts to get a little bit messy, just give it a little wipe in between the next petal just to keep everything clean and crisp. Okay, so now it's time to make your petal. So once your palette knife is loaded with a nice thick amount of texture, all you need to do is place it down on your canvas, softly push downwards, ever so lightly drag your knife backwards and then lift up at the end. Did you get all that? So lifting your wrist and the knife up at the end of making your petal is what creates that cute little flick. And the more pressure that you apply to your knife, the more the petal is going to flatten out. Now this does take practice, but you will get it. Now I actually only use about 3 palette knives and I can create a whole range of different petal shapes and sizes just using these 3 knives. You don't need to have a giant collection. Here you can see that I'm creating, I'd say, medium to large size petals, and if I wanted to make some smaller ones using the same knife, I would go in and use the exact same technique, only applying a little less of the product and using even less pressure. I wouldn't want to have it any other way. I'm addicted and I just can't get enough. So here we go again with one of those medium to large size petals. You just need to press down, pull back and then lift up. And the direction in which you choose to do this is completely up to you. Sometimes I find it easier to pull my knife backwards away from me, and then other times I will create my petals pulling the knife towards me. So whatever you are most comfortable with. So most times when I create a painting, I try and start with my largest elements first. I will put down, say, my flowers and space them out over the canvas before I go ahead and fill in the rest of the area with the smaller elements. And this is just what I find works for me, working from the biggest to the medium to the small and kind of working outwards. But again, it's such a personal thing and you just need to experiment and practice and work out what works best for you. Even when I do it this way, sometimes I will find little nooks and crannies that are hard to get into with a shape, and it can get a little bit messy when you have an area with a gap and your knife is too big to fit in there with something. So that does happen from time to time, but that's art for you. It's not always going to be perfect. It's handmade and you just need to work with what you have and do the best that you can. And overall, I think this painting is looking really pretty.